Hi, so we are going to go together through this short PowerPoint. It's one of the early steps in getting ready for your Component 2. The goals for the entire module will be that you will have written an instructional context using your knowledge of students, that you will be able to recognize and create worthwhile instructional goals, and that you will understand how to use the architecture of accomplished teaching to plan your lesson sequence. Okay, so everybody's Component 2 has two common features. It shows how you can plan and set goal and measure progress and analyze and reflect an instructional sequence. And it shows your accomplished teaching over a period of time. So this whole Component 2 is really about you showing how you can use the architecture of accomplished teaching. So let's make sure we fully understand what that looks like. Step one in the architecture is starting always with your students. Who are they? What are their unique needs? What do they need in order to succeed? And it ties in with the first core proposition. Next step is setting high, worthwhile goals. We're going to be talking about the difference between a goal and an activity. The next step, which ties in the second core proposition, is that you implement instruction designed to attain the goals that you set. Fourth step is that you evaluate student learning. How are the students doing in light of the goals that you set and your instruction? And that ties in the third core proposition. Fifth step, reflecting on how the kids are doing. How effective was your instructional design? What do you need to do next? And that's the fourth core proposition, that teachers think systematically about their practice. And then the last step is setting new high and worthwhile goals for the next learning sequence. And you'll notice that the fifth core proposition pops up. Teachers are members of learning communities, and that is because accomplished teachers are collaborating all the time and sharing and learning from each other. So hopefully between steps 5 and 6, there is time for you to collaborate with your colleagues in order to together set new high and worthwhile goals for your students. Okay, so the instructional context is found maybe halfway through your Component 2 instructions. There are a series of questions that you are to answer as part of your written commentary. Those questions are divided into little subcategories, and the instructional context is the first category. For exceptional needs, it's called the student profile. And when you look at the questions, you'll see that basically you're kind of describing your setting. Remember that your assessor that's reading your component knows nothing at all about your context other than what you say. They don't know what state you're in. They don't know whether it's a high needs, high poverty school or a very affluent. They have no idea what your context is. So it's important that you set that and make it a clear picture for the assessor. The instructional context is also where you start to build the connections between the students, the goals, your instruction, and your assessment. And when they're not aligned, you don't score well. And this diagram, I really like it because it really helps to create a visual of what happens when there are weak connections or a misalignment. So I'm not going to read this document, but I urge you to come back to this and look at this carefully. There's a lot of great information in here. And then this is what it looks like when strong connections are made and everything is in alignment. It's very tight, it's very clear to follow, and that's where the term clear, consistent, convincing evidence comes from, and that's where you score high on the rubric. So I want to talk a little bit about a goal and what constitutes a well-written goal. A goal needs to be high and worthwhile. So it's important for the mastery of the subject matter at the development level of your students. It's going to be one of your standards, your Common Core standards, your next generation science standards, or it's going to be an important thing. It's clearly accessible and measurable. So you want to make sure that in your written commentary and in your planning, you're figuring out how am I going to know, what am I going to use as my evidence that the students have achieved mastery and or have achieved their goal. And it's appropriate for the students at this time and in this setting. It describes exactly what the students will know and be able to do, and it's not too broad. Be careful. Many times teachers have thought they have written a goal and they've actually written an activity. So if it's something that a student can do in one sitting, it's not a goal. This is something that is achieved over multiple activities or multiple lessons. Okay, goal selection is your foundation for creating an effective lesson sequence. This is kind of a repeat of what I've just said. It's a statement of what students will learn, and it's not an activity. So that's the end of this PowerPoint. I want to refer you back now to Canvas for your next steps, which will be to start drafting your instructional context, and we have some planning documents for you to help you with that. Thank you.